Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, where I talk about the most shocking and controversial topics in the world. Today, I'm going to tell you about Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire financier who was accused of running a sex trafficking ring involving underage girls, and who died in mysterious circumstances while awaiting trial. Who was Jeffrey Epstein and how did he become so rich and powerful? How did he manage to evade justice for so long? And what was his connection to celebrities, politicians, and royalty? And what really happened on the night of his death, and who was behind it? These are some of the questions I will try to answer in this video. But be warned, this story is disturbing, dark, and full of twists and turns. Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York, to a middle-class Jewish family. He was a smart and ambitious student who dropped out of college and became a math teacher at an elite private school, where he met some of his future clients and contacts. He then switched to the banking and finance sector, working at Bear Stearns before starting his own firm, J. Epstein & Company, in 1982. He claimed to only serve clients with assets worth more than $1 billion, and operated his company out of the U.S. Virgin Islands for tax reasons. He amassed a fortune of over $500 million, and owned several properties around the world, including a mansion in Manhattan, a ranch in New Mexico, an apartment in Paris, and a private island in the Caribbean, which he called Little Street James, or Pedophile Island, by some of his accusers. Epstein was also known for his high-profile social circle, which included celebrities like Woody Allen, Kevin Spacey, and Naomi Campbell, politicians like Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Ehud Barak, and royalty like Prince Andrew of the UK. He often flew them on his private jet, which he nicknamed the Lolita Express, and invited them to his lavish parties and events. He also donated millions of dollars to various causes and institutions, such as Harvard University, the Clinton Foundation, and the MIT Media Lab. But behind this glamorous facade, Epstein was hiding a dark and sinister secret. He was a serial sex offender, who preyed on young and vulnerable girls, some as young as 14, and sexually abused them at his homes and on his island. He also recruited and paid some of his victims to bring him more girls, creating a network of exploitation and manipulation. He used his money, power, and influence to silence and intimidate his victims, and to avoid any legal consequences. The first allegations against Epstein surfaced in 2005, when a parent reported that he had molested her 14-year-old daughter at his Palm Beach mansion. The police launched an investigation, and found evidence of at least 36 girls who had been sexually abused by Epstein and his associates. They also discovered a hidden camera system that recorded his illicit activities. They prepared a 53-page indictment, which could have landed Epstein in prison for life. However, in a shocking twist, the federal prosecutors in Florida, led by Alexander Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary, struck a secret plea deal with Epstein's lawyers, which allowed him to plead guilty to only 2 state charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution, and to serve only 13 months in a county jail, with generous work release privileges. He also agreed to pay some of his victims in exchange for their silence, and to register as a sex offender. The deal was kept hidden from the public and the victims, and was later criticized as a sweetheart deal, and a miscarriage of justice. Epstein was released from jail in 2009, and resumed his lavish lifestyle, apparently unrepentant and undeterred by his conviction. He continued to associate with powerful and influential people, and to travel around the world. He also tried to rehabilitate his image, by portraying himself as a philanthropist and a scientific patron, who was interested in topics like artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and eugenics. He even hosted a conference on his island, where he invited prominent scientists and thinkers, such as Stephen Hawking, Marvin Minsky, and Lawrence Krauss. But Epstein's past finally caught up with him in 2019, when a series of investigative reports by the Miami Herald exposed his crimes and his plea deal, and sparked public outrage and demand for justice. The FBI reopened the case, and on July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, which involved dozens of girls in New York and Florida, between 2002 and 2005. He faced up to 45 years in prison, if convicted. Epstein pleaded not guilty, and was denied bail, as he was deemed a flight risk and a danger to the community. He was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a high-security facility that housed notorious inmates like El Chapo and Bernie Madoff. He was placed on suicide watch, after he was found unconscious in his cell on July 23, with marks on his neck, which were initially reported as a suicide attempt, but later suggested to be a possible assault by another inmate. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell, hanging from a bedsheet tied to the top bunk. The medical examiner ruled his death a suicide by hanging, but many people, including his lawyers, his brother, and some of his victims, disputed this conclusion, and raised questions and doubts about the circumstances of his death. They pointed out several irregularities and anomalies, such as the 2 guards who were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, fell asleep and falsified the records. The 2 cameras outside his cell malfunctioned and failed to record anything. The autopsy report revealed that Epstein had multiple broken bones in his neck, which were more consistent with homicide by strangulation than suicide by hanging. The bedsheet that he allegedly used to hang himself was too thin and weak to support his weight. The noose that he allegedly made from the bedsheet did not match the marks on his neck. The cellmate that he had before his death was transferred out, leaving him alone and unsupervised. The suicide note that he allegedly left behind was vague and cryptic, and did not express any remorse or apology to his victims. These facts and more fueled various conspiracy theories, which suggested that Epstein was murdered by someone who wanted to silence him and prevent him from revealing his secrets and implicating his powerful friends and associates. Some of the names that were mentioned as possible suspects or accomplices were Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend and longtime associate, who was accused of helping him recruit and groom his victims, and who was arrested in July 2020, and later found guilty of 5 out of 6 charges relating to Epstein's sex trafficking operation. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison in June 2022. Cubed to the power of 4. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, who was a close friend of Epstein and Maxwell, and who was accused of having sex with one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre, when she was 17. He denied the allegations, and gave a disastrous interview to the BBC, in which he claimed that he did not sweat, that he was at a Pizza Express on the night of the alleged incident, and that he did not regret his friendship with Epstein. He was later stripped of his royal duties and patronages, and faced legal action from Giuffre. Bill Clinton, the former president of the United States, who flew on Epstein's jet at least 26 times, according to flight logs, and who visited his island and ranch, according to witnesses. He denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, and said that he only had a limited contact with him. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, who was a neighbor and a friend of Epstein in Palm Beach, and who once praised him as a terrific guy, who liked beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. He also hosted him at his Mar-a-Lago resort, where Epstein allegedly recruited some of his victims. He later claimed that he had a falling out with him, and that he was not a fan of him. Of course, these are just some of the names that have been linked to Epstein, and there is no conclusive evidence that any of them had anything to do with his death. But the fact that there are so many unanswered questions and unresolved issues makes this story one of the most intriguing and scandalous in recent history. What do you think about the Jeffrey Epstein story? Do you believe that he killed himself, or that he was murdered? And if so, by whom and why? And what do you think about his victims, and their quest for justice and closure? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.